Good afternoon, all. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Boston Art Commission. My name is Alexandra Paul-Zotov, and I'm the Public Art Registrar in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. In that capacity, I'm also the administrator of the Boston Art Commission. Let's just take a moment to update our names, pronouns, as well as make sure we're all muted. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. As a reminder, this was extended until 2025. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Boston Art Commission, the public can join this meeting through telephone and video conferencing. For those of you with us today, this meeting is being recorded and closed captioning is available. You may access it at the bottom of the screen. If you are having trouble locating the button, please chat us for assistance.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks everybody for being here. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and the Boston Art Commission believe that public art is any artwork installed in publicly accessible spaces where they can be experienced by everyone for free. For transparency and community input, artworks proposed for City of Boston property are reviewed and discussed at public meetings of the BAC on a regular and usually monthly basis. Working together with the public art team in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, the BAC is an independent board composed of 2 ex officio and 7 volunteer community members appointed by the mayor. The BAC has exclusive authority to approve and commission artworks intended to be added to the city's collection or placed on city property. And here you can see the public art team in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. We manage all phases and daily operations and duties related to public art projects cited on or proposed for Boston property in collaboration with the BAC, community members, and our colleagues in other departments at the City of Boston, in addition to running these meetings. Helping to facilitate today's meeting are Amber Torres, Public Art Project Manager, Paul Zotov, Public Art Registrar, and Birgit Worcester, Senior Public Art Project Manager. And we'll put an email for us in the chat, and please let us know if you have any questions pertaining to this meeting or anything public art related at all. We facilitate the BAC meetings in addition to our team with some incredible consultants and partners. Emily Rose Navarro, who is, you can see here, is our new Transformative Art and Monuments Project Coordinator. Eliza Quinones is our mural consultant. Josh Crane is our conservation consultant. And Erin Genia is our Indigenous Public Art and Cultural Spaces consultant. And I will pass to Chair Andres.
Thanks, Karen. Welcome, everyone. Happy to be here with you today. I call this public hearing to order at 4:35 p.m. Today, we're holding our monthly public meetings, which are generally held on the second Tuesday of each month, and I hope you'll continue to join us. Here at the Boston Art Commission, we engage in discussions about public art in Boston in order to foster the creation and collection of artworks that reflect the people, ideas, histories, and futures of Boston, which is located on the traditional homeland of the Massachusetts people and the neighboring Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples. We acknowledge the atrocities committed against Indigenous peoples, all of the communities that have been subsequently harmed, and the ways in which colonialism has created systemic oppression. We recognize the continuing presence of these communities and the Indigenous peoples represented in the city's residents, in addition to those in the diaspora. We also recognize that Boston exists as a result of the forced labor and economic extraction from enslaved African Americans. I'll now take roll call of commissioners to confirm a quorum. So commissioners, after I say your name, please say here. James Mason.
Here.
I don't think Cara or Diana are here. Nor is Robert Freeman. Brian Hone.
Here.
Nigel Jacob.
Here.
And Abigail Norman.
Here.
And with me on the meeting as well, we have a quorum, so we can continue. On this slide, you'll see today's agenda, which is also posted publicly on the city's website, boston.gov. We'll now take a few minutes to review the meeting minutes from our September meeting. Commissioners, are there any comments or modifications that you'd like to make to those minutes? Hearing none, would any commissioner like to make a motion to approve the September minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the commission minutes.
Thanks, James. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Nigel. So commissioners, after I say your name, please say yes if you agree with the motion. James,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Nigel,
Yes.
Abigail,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. The motion passes. Thanks. And now I will pass it to Karen for the director's report.
Thank you, John. We have 4 presentations for review today. We have Sweet Spot, which is a temporary artwork that we'll be looking at for final design. So this will be our first and only time reviewing this project for the Roxbury branch of the Boston Public Library by artist Michael Berthaud, who is applying as an accelerator from the Boston Public Art Triennial. We also have another project from the Triennial, or we'll be looking at the artist selection, in this case for a long-term artwork, which will be in multiple neighborhoods. And then we have 2 really exciting acceptances to look at. We did one of them last month for Malcolm X Park. We will be looking at X Legacy, one of the basketball court murals in Malcolm X Park in Roxbury by Otra, Cuidad, and Nomada, Estudio, Urbano. And that will be presented by Liza Quinones, the mural consultant for the city of Boston. And she'll also be presenting Give Them Their Flowers, another long-term mural for acceptance at Malcolm X Park basketball court in Roxbury. And that is by Problak Gibbs, Lee Soems Beard, Dean 5, Michael Talbot, Ayana Mack, and Luis Urena. We have some updates for you. First, projects in fabrication. You can see a really great photo here of Call and Response Radiating Safety by Lamerchi Fraser and Ralph Helmick for Firehouse for Engine 42 in Eggleston Square. It's in the final stages of fabrication, and the artist team visited Central Falls, Rhode Island to test the lighting on October 30th. And because of some delays on lighting hardware, installation for the artwork has been rescheduled for the early spring. We're really hoping to get it in this fall, but unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. But as you can see, it's almost there. Artist Wen Sen has received all 4 scanned massing forms of his full-scale Chinatown worker statues, the figures, and is currently at work on shaping them in preparation for bronze casting. And last week, we invited 9 vinyl companies to bid on the production and installation of Destiny Palmer's mural at the Vine Street BCYF in Roxbury. The bid closed today at 3:30. And according to David Hinton at Vine Street, the best time to install the artwork is during a weekend when the center is not busy. So we are figuring that out. Amber Torres is leading us in this work. And once a contractor is awarded, she will work with the artist to finalize design file and strive to have the mural installed this January, following a ribbon cutting. And the installation of Amulet by Ria Bedro for the City Hall Plaza Revolving Sculpture Program has been tentatively rescheduled for spring 2025 as well. City Boston Property Management Department is contracting with Welding Works to construct the steel base this fall. If you walk by, you will see it's all dug up over there, and that will support the piece and the future program sculptures. We also are really excited. Project managers Birgit Worster and Amber Torres recently met with Francine Agapov of Marucciotto Studio to review coordination items for installation of the figures for Journey of My Soul, the Legacy of Frederick Douglass, including detailed specifications for the foundation elements of the memorial. And we are looking for that one for the plaza and installation of the sculpture for the fall of 2025. And Emergent Memory, the Coconut Grove Memorial Project, has submitted construction documents to the City of Boston Parks Department for review and will develop a mock-up of glass and stone elements to test material weathering over the winter. And here, Copley Square Park is in preliminary design, working with artists there. And we'll be doing an artist announcement soon too, I think. And Engine 17, we are still in contracting. And on Monument, for the second round of On Monument, the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, via the Art Commission, is commissioning temporary monuments from groundbreaking artists as a continuation of partnerships with artists and celebrated cultural organizations presented through a series of interconnected activations. In this call to artists, which we are expecting to launch tomorrow, we've had a busy day trying to get that ready. We are presenting two distinct opportunities for artists as well as one for writers. First, we're looking for proposals from artists or artist-led teams for temporary monuments or unmonuments that are socially responsive and transform public places to reflect the city's cultural vibrancy in dialogue with Boston's collection of existing monuments. And this will be during the spring, summer, and fall of 2025. All temporary monuments must be free and accessible to the public in Boston. And projects may be proposed in any City of Boston neighborhood. So once we have that out, we'll be sure to share it with you and would love if you could share it with others. And secondly, Emerson Contemporary is hosting another workshop. Last year, they did the augmented reality workshop, which you might remember, and this year they're doing a projection mapping workshop with Georgie Friedman. And that's designed to support artists in gaining access to the skills and technology needed to either translate previous work or create new work by integrating projection with 2D work, sculpture, installation, performance, and public art practices. Participants should have a base knowledge of creating this work and will have to come with their own laptop, but this is a really incredible opportunity for artists to explore projection mapping. And we have some upcoming events for On Monument coming up as well. But you can see here a recent event we had just this weekend. You can see the image at the public conversation at the Value of a Life, the wonderful sculpture by Fern Cunningham, which was hosted by Barry Gaither with Autumn Allen and Shondell Davis. That happened this past Saturday. And this was sort of modeled after the talks we've been doing at the Embrace. This is the second one in the series by the Museum of the National Center for Afro-American Artists. The first one happened at the Judge a couple weeks ago, and there'll be another one coming up soon, which you'll hear about. We also had community art making workshops with Ruth Henry that happened at the Harvard Art Museum. The 10,000 Bloom Chrysanthemum Grows in Chinatown by Anita Yip, which was really great, and that was with POW Art Center. And then we had a 3-day event this last weekend with Kate Farrington, who did the Future Monument to the Trees of the Public Garden. And so that was really wonderful. I went to one of her tours a couple weeks ago. I highly recommend going on one yourself. It's really beautiful. And the conservation works are continuing. Webster's reply to Hain, the giant painting in Faneuil Hall is still under conservation. So the hall is closed, but the work is moving ahead well, and visitors are welcomed to visit the Great Hall and to drop in on the conservators and see it. It's very cool. We are having a structural engineer in this week, and conservation will be completed by January. And we're also moving forward, working with our conservation consultant, and we are moving ahead on our public art map, which I'm really excited that we're going to be able to share with you today. You can see version 1 of our public art map here. Big shout out to Paul Zotov, who has been shouldering this really tough work. It looks cool here, but it's been a ton of work with the data, a ton of work working with our lovely colleagues at Do It to try to get us here. And we're really excited for this version and the upcoming versions that we'll have soon. So you can find it now on the Office of Arts and Culture's website. And we are really looking for feedback at this point. We are absolutely, this is a version 1. It does not have everything. We know, we're sure there are things we miss, and we're sure there are other great examples of maps. Like if you send us, that could be great. Nigel, we've talked a bunch that you might have some good thoughts, but I think we all might. And so we have a feedback form, which I think somebody may have dropped in the chat. And I guess we should send the link, if we not put in already, the link to the website and the link to feedback. And I know we already have 1,000 ideas of things we want to do that we weren't quite able to do yet. But all feedback, even telling us the things that are good. We got really excited that we were able to put in the T lines, train stops, and the blue bike stops, because we're really interested in people being able to use this in real life, and that when you click on a thing, you can get directions. It'll open up in Google Maps. We're really interested in people being able to make use of this in real time. So all feedback, positive and negative, and suggestions are really welcome. We know it's not the most stylish, but it looks pretty clean, and we'll maybe get cuter as we go. And with that, I will pass back to John.
Thanks, Karen. Get cuter as we go. That's what we do here at the Boston Art Commission. That map looks great. I'm so glad it exists now. Paul, thank you for putting in all that work. And for those of you that are here, I do hope you'll take a moment to just look at it, maybe try and use it. And if you do have suggestions, comments, or compliments, if you could share them, because I think that would be really helpful for all of us here. To learn how to make something that's really usable for City of Boston residents and those beyond. So much appreciated. We'll now move on to the items on the agenda for review, public testimony, and commission vote. The instructions above tell you how you can participate in today's meeting. If you have any technical difficulties, feel free to ask a question in the chat and a member of staff will help you. When public testimony is requested, you can press the raise your hand icon and we'll call on you. And if you're calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. In a few previous meetings ago, one of our attendees suggested we take a few moments that if anyone on this call has questions about either Karen's director's report or public art in general, or the Boston Art Commission, that we take a moment just to answer any questions anyone might have. So that time is now. So if you have a question, feel free to unmute and ask it or raise your hand. Anyone? Going once. Okay, maybe next time. Our goal at the BAC is to make this meeting a good experience for all, so please remember to keep your comments on topic brief and respectful. You can submit longer written testimony to bac@boston.gov, and if you're called on, please state your name, title, program, and organization if relevant. So now we'll move on to our first project for discussion, which will be Sweet Spot, by Michael Berthaud, a temporary artwork for the Roxbury Boston Public Library. Michael is the second accelerator artist funded by the Boston Public Triennial to present to the BAC this year. And Amber, are you presenting this or should I just keep going?
Feel free to continue. You're doing great.
Okay, great. You may remember that back in September, we approved Nellie Anderson's Accelerator project for the Eggleston Boston Public Library. Michael has worked closely with BAC Registrar Paul Zotov and Senior Public Art Project Manager Birgit Worcester to get his presentation ready for today. And so now I'll hand it over to Michael to present.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Sweet. So my name is Michael Berthaud. I'm a Boston-based game designer raised in Mission Hill. I went to Boston Latin School and graduated from Wentworth. And I work in the game industry. I work with leaders like Microsoft, Rovio, and Niantic on AR titles, consoles, and mobiles. And most of my work lies in just pushing the boundaries between art and technology. I work with like computer languages like C++ or engines like Unity and Unreal. Yeah, next slide. So the piece that I'm working on for the Roxbury Library is called Sweet Spot. So Sweet Spot is an interactive light sculpture featuring an acrylic mannequin with an LED lit interior and responsive display. So visitors can place objects like a basketball or microphone on this podium in front of the figure, and you'll trigger shifts in the mannequin's display. So this piece draws from my experiences growing up in Boston and just observing how society often frames success for Black youth. So symbols like a basketball and a microphone, both of which are recognized in media as pathways of achievement for Black youth. This piece seeks to explore how these narrow representations of achievement for Black youth can overshadow the many facets of curiosity that actually exist within contemporary Black youth today. Next. So a lot of the design talks and things that are going through while I was working on this piece is like just looking at media today, especially in Boston. And I look at this mural and I like ask, what are the impacts on a young Black child who sees a mural resembling themselves sitting on a basketball tying their shoes? And are there other ways that we can visually connect with that child besides a depiction like this? So that's kind of the motivation for a piece like Sweet Spot. Next slide. So for a project visualization, this is what it looks like. So this is the mannequin inside of the interior display. Next slide. So you'll see in this isometric view here that you'll have the mannequin inside of this aluminum framed tempered glass case. And then you'll see in front of it is the podium that has the two objects encased in acrylic, the basketball and the microphone. And that's where visitors will be able to grab it and put it on top. Next slide. So like I mentioned before, so the visitor interaction, so visitors will be able to see the mannequin exploring and having its different renders. And when a visitor comes through and places that basketball on top of the podium, you'll effectively narrow the kinds of representation of images that are on the mannequin, thus being a metaphor for the narrowing of interest that I see in contemporary media. Next slide. So for the fabrication, so this is an acrylic mannequin. I manually installed about 2,000 LEDs manually. So on the left and right, you can see the process of taking the clear mannequin, installing the LEDs, tinting it black so visitors can't see the interior, and that's the inside. Next slide. So that's what it looks like. So that's a hand flipping a book. There's still frames in a PDF, but that's one of the representations that people will see when it's idle, when there is no basketball and there's no imposed force on the piece. Next slide. So for the actual case, so like I said before, it's aluminum framed vitrine. So the each face is bolted and slid together. So you can see in the middle one, those are the bolts that hold the case together, and the steel brackets that hold the shelf that actually keeps the mannequin up on its shelf. Next slide. And this is just what I was mentioning before. So each object is encased in acrylic, tethered to the podium via steel cable. So this is just images of us welding the steel as well as fabricating the podium that holds the objects. Next slide. So again, this is just the final picture of it all right here. Next slide. So power for this piece is going to be sourced from one of the exterior outlets on the library's exterior. You can see the yellow line there is the pathway that's going to go to the vitrine. And on the right is just the dimensions, 2D sketch drawings of the piece. So for the site, like mentioned, this is going to be at the Roxbury Library that was recently renovated. And this site is important to me because it's a third place for the youth to go that's not a basketball court, that they can actually explore and do things after school. Next. So I work with Christina Jones, the branch librarian at the Roxbury Library, as well as Priscilla Foley, to put this together. They don't have any direct requests for me right now. They're just waiting for me to come and install it. Next. So for the maintenance plan, the podium and vitrine are both watertight due to the mannequin being full of LEDs. And I plan to go there every week just to check on the case and make sure the simulation, the software that I designed is up to par. And I have spare acrylic boxes in case for some reason something happens or I have to replace any of the steel cables and such. Next. So for community engagement, given the nature of everything I've talked about just now, I'm working with the Timothy Smith Network. They basically work in helping underrepresented youth and bridging the gap between the technological access that in underrepresented communities. So I'm working with them to do a workshop and just show youth the kinds of technology that I used to put this piece together, because it's very similar to the work I do in games, and kids like that kind of stuff. So for the installation plan, this piece is intended to get installed December 6th, with the opening celebration being December 7th, and it's going to run through January 31st, 2025. Next. Oh, and that's the end.
Michael, thanks so much. So speedy.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
Mhm.
I'd now like to open the floor to any commissioners who may have a question or comment for Michael.
I have a question. Hey, Michael, this is really cool. My question is, are the options the basketball and the microphone, or are there other options that could be used?
No, so basically that's very intentional that there's a limited amount of options. So there's a basketball and a microphone as the input devices. And when the piece is idle, the mannequin itself explores through a series of different videos and imagery, such as reading, drawing, painting, things like that. So the point of the input is the visitor itself is visualizing what it looks like to put an object like that on a pedestal, and what does it do to the mannequin. So there's a juxtaposition between its idle state and when input is imposed on the piece.
Okay,
And oh, sorry. To follow up on that, Michael, just to confirm that those objects are affixed to the sculpture
Correct.
through wires, right? Okay, great.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. They're affixed to the podium.
Great.
That's the interior. This middle slide is the top piece pulled off. So we bolted steel eyes onto it and tethered steel cable.
Okay. Other commissioner questions?
Yes. Thank you, Michael. Again, it seems like a really cool project. The question that I have is, if I'm just kind of encountering this object, how would I kind of like know what to do with it? So thinking a little bit about thinking through like the signage part or any kind of like instructional element. I'm curious about your thoughts there.
Yeah, so there's signage adjacent to the sculpture. If you go back a couple of ticks, let's see. Yeah, right here. This it might have blended in with the background, but there'll be signage right there. The signage depicts precisely what you said. It tells you exactly how you could interact with it. However, though, like a keen participant will probably interact with it just because knowing how those kids are and when I prototyped it with them. But nevertheless, given the nature of the piece, the hope is that when people interact with it, you realize the effect of interacting with it, and they actually take the basketball off of the podium temporarily. But I'm sure the signage is very, very clear. It will tell you exactly the constraints that you can engage with this.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other commissioner questions? Michael, I had one. The sculpture is not in any way connected to or affixed to the library, correct?
No, like
Okay.
no.
I'm just curious about the weight distribution and the stability of the object.
The train?
If somebody were to shake it or move it, is it possible that it could topple over? I'm just curious about that.
No, so even in this slide here, if you look, attached are these anti-tip steel beams
Got it.
on the bottom. So that's how you wouldn't be able to tip that over. And it's weighed down. It's super heavy. But even if it wasn't weighed down, those steel beams would make it very hard for it to tip over.
Okay, great. Any other commissioner questions? Well, let me now open it up to any members of the public. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Question. I think there was a question flagged about wheelchair access. So for individuals who are maybe kind of approaching the piece in a wheelchair, kind of thinking through that access component, if you have thoughts about that, or if you've kind of gone through conversations with folks at the Disability Commission or anything like that.
In terms of interacting with, well, the actual objects in their idle state are waist high, so you should be able to, like, my nephew can grab those. So they're pretty low.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So I was going to open this up to the public, and I think we have a question that asks from Naomi, is it drilled down? Let me read the question. Sorry. Is it drilled into the ground to prevent tipping? I know, Naomi, that Michael just explained these black barriers, but Michael, if you could just once again describe.
Yeah, so the podium in front is, the base is made of steel and it's weighed down. And so there's that. And then the vitrine itself, those are steel anti-tip beams. So you wouldn't be, if for you to pull that, they're like about 3 or 4 feet. So on top of being weighed down, those beams would prevent somebody from easily toppling it over. That's why they're that length.
Thanks for that question, Naomi. Any other questions from the public or comments? Any hands raised? Okay. Hearing none, I'd like to ask if any commissioner would like to make a motion to approve this temporary artwork.
I would like to make a motion to approve this temporary artwork.
Sweet spot at the Roxbury Boston Public Library. Thanks so much, Abigail. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, James. Commissioners, after I state your name, say yes if you approve the motion. James?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Nigel?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes. Congratulations, Michael. I'm excited to see it once it's installed.
Thank you.
I'll now pass to Karen for our next presentation from the Boston Public Art Triennial.
Hi. So we are reviewing artist selection for a long-term artwork from the Boston Public Art Triennial. We're really excited to welcome Leo Crowley, who has been really great to work with. In particular, Amber and Birgit have been working really closely with him, as well as Paul, for presentations to review all the many projects coming through. So we're excited that we get to review this one project today for artist selection. It's going to be a little different than our reviews from the others. This is the only one of their projects that is long-term, and we'll learn why very shortly. But the other ones will be coming in soon for the sort of single presentation and review that temporary artworks get. But I think we're going to get a great preview of the projects that are coming in a good understanding of the curatorial process that the Public Art Triennial has gone through. This is a big moment for Boston as we prepare to welcome these works this spring. And our office is very excited to be involved not just in reviewing the projects together with the community at this meeting, but also as a partner and a funder through both Unmonument and the neighborhood and downtown activation grants. And with that, I will pass to Leo.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you to the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and the BAC, and to Birgit, Amber, and Paul for all their help in preparing this deck. In thinking about the best way to present this project and the triennial to the commission, we made the decision that today we would use it to provide an overview of the triennial so that we can bring you up to speed on the initiative writ large, and then walk you through the artist selection process with an artist spotlight on Akene Ijeoma, whose project we're proposing as a long-term public artwork. And in order to do that, I'm going to pass it over to Kate Gilbert, our Executive Director.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I can't believe I still get nervous at these things. I think I've presented at least 24 times over 9 years. So I'm really happy to be here. And I just want to give a quick congrats to Michael on his project. Many of you have known of Now and There, now the Boston Public Art Triennial. And I just wanted to give a quick overview of our mission and vision again. We believe that public art can open mind conversations and spaces around Boston, resulting in a more equitable, vibrant city. I know that's a lot to ask of art, but I think that art does that when we come together in shared public spaces. We envision over the course of 2 or 3 of these triennials, once every 3 years, citywide public art exhibition, that we can provide equitable social change, cultural vibrancy, and we're not doing that alone. We have an incredible staff of 12. We've got about the same in board members. We have a triennial advisory group, many of whom were part of a task force when we started thinking about this idea of a citywide public art exhibition. We have 11 paid community advisors who form a community advisory group. And then all of you from the Art Commission, Karen and Cara, I think I like that phrase, we keep getting cuter as we go. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, it's been about 9 years now. I started the organization in 2015, and since then, between the accelerator projects and the projects that we've commissioned on our own, we've created 55 projects, all within the city of Boston. They've been in 30 locations. 50% have been in the neighborhood. So it's really important that we're activating not only the downtown corridor, but also our cherished neighborhoods. We've worked with 75 artists. You're doing the math. Some of these projects had more artists per project. And we're really proud to say that we've made our commitment to 50% of our projects always being by BIPOC individuals. I think it goes without saying, but for those who aren't in the public art world, our works are always free. Even the events that we bring people to, they're always free, open to the public. You don't need a ticket. You don't even need to register. You can just go and enjoy them. Next slide, please. 4 primary ways that we do our work. Number 1, it's contemporary. Sometimes it's it's always thought-provoking, I think, but it's helping us think about new ways of engaging in public space together. We are artist-driven. We find the artists we believe in who are having conversations in their work that we also want to be seeing in the region and nationally, regardless of race, ethnicity, cultural, and socioeconomic status. Our work is artist-driven and community engaged. There's a really important "and" in there. It was why it was in our name in the past. These works we know are for the public, and it's for the communities that the works reside in. And then primarily our works are temporary, and that's part of why we're here today to talk about a longer-term temporary project. You can go to the next slide, and as you're doing that, I'll just share that my work at the Greenway Conservancy many years ago showed that temporary is a great way to bring new ideas into our public sphere, test them, get people's responses. We can move through examples more quickly that way. For the last, I'd say 5 years, we've been using a curatorial premise of Prism to help us select artworks. I'll soon bring on Pedro and Tess, who will talk about how they've been curating the triennial. As you can imagine, it feels sometimes to people who aren't curators, it's just sort of some magic, but there really is some logic and rigor behind this. 1, our works must be participatory in nature. 2, we try and reach very large audiences with our work, so this isn't something quietly done for the art world. 3, the impact is measurable. We do a lot of work with surveys, cell phone data, and tracking to see, are we doing work that the public resonates with and that they respond to and want to see more of. The works are always site or context specific, so we're not parachuting works in. They're really in context with the environs. And then they're memorable. How do we measure memorable? I think we'll see that in the triennial. This is going to be a not to be missed experience. Next slide, please. There's a lot that we can say here about how we engage our communities. We have another acronym that was actually created by Kenny Maskery when he was here in our community partnerships engagement department. Projects and the activities all have reach. So they respond, energize, activate, collaborate, and honor each public space and its people. Next slide. So annually, and many of you who know us and the projects that we've been bringing forth over the last 9 years, we're really here to find and foster. So this is local artists. We're continuing to do that. So the Public Art Accelerator will continue every year, as well as Lot Lab. And this year, Lot Lab was in conjunction with the On Monument project with the City of Boston. Lot Lab has been in and will be in again next year at the Charlestown Navy Yard. It's a place that we can consistently keep testing new ways of engaging public art and communities together. And next slide, the focus of the organization is now this every 3-year citywide public art exhibition that will be free and open to all. Next slide, please. So here's a lot of words and I'm going to try and talk, but I wanted to sort of put it all together in one place. So a triennial, every 3 years, citywide public art festival, builds on a sort of growing trend of ennials, biennials that happen every 2 years and triennials that happen every 3 years. And there's really only a handful of cities in the nation that are doing this. I was just visiting Prospect in New Orleans, one of the original triennials. There's also Counter Public in St. Louis and Desert X in Coachella Valley. So this is certainly the first for the East Coast and much of the region. What's different and very unique about ours is not only the partnership with the City of Boston, but also that it is completely outside and free. So high level, there will be 18 new commissions that will be part of this, always free, temporary, with this permanent long-term, we should adjust that, long-term project we'll be talking about. In addition, the area museums are all participating in the theme of the project, with which Pedro and Tess will tell you about. So that's the MFA, their project with Alan Michelson is actually opening this Thursday. The Mass Art Museum, Isabel Stewart Gardner Museum, the ICA Watershed, and as well as the MIT List Visual Arts Center with their exterior works. So overall, we're going to be in at least 23 locations. We anticipate at least 200,000 visitors coming to see this. It is built for Boston first, but we're excited about the international and national audiences that will come. We're estimating conservatively now 1 billion impressions. We've got a really strong media buy to bring people here, about 16.5 million in economic impact, lots of new tourists to the city that will hopefully see the city in a new way through the vision of the 18 artists that are part of this. Next slide, please. Oh, and I should say, let's just say this is opening on May 22nd, 2025, and will run through October 31st, 2025. I'd love to bring on Pedro and Tess now to talk through the idea of the exchange. And as they do, I'll just do a quick preview of Pedro Alonso and I actually met when he was doing the project with JR. On the side of the Hancock that many of you may remember, Now and There brought in Faces of Dudley and the photo booth truck that came with JR. So that partnership with Pedro started back then, I think in 2016. We've since worked together on a few projects at Central Wharf Park, and I really respect his curatorial vision in which he's very much artist sort of first, but also bringing in local experts to really sort of tie ideas to local expertise. And then, of course, I met Tess in the last year and a half. She is currently the curator of Native American art at the Trustees of Reservations and has really brought a real breath of fresh air to not only our organization, but the curation. And together, they're making a really incredible team. So I will hand it over to Pedro and Tess now.
Thank you, Kate. Hi to everyone.
And then if you don't mind going back one slide so we can stay on that. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So the exchange, the premise is really based on the idea of the great work that is done in the city of Boston And I was having a hard time articulating that until one day, in Logan, trying to catch a flight, I heard the mayor say those words in her recording. People come here to do great work. And that's really what this show is about. It's about bringing artists into contact with the community, with the experts across the board, not just researchers at MIT or academics, but organizations like Break Time that are working with advocating for homeless youth and providing services, or for the Trees. So it's a very broad array of people that we're reaching out to and putting the artists in touch with. But what I think is, in many ways, most important is that when you collaborate, when you start to work with others, you automatically build community, you build an audience for the project. And that has been extremely rewarding and really, I have to say, successful so far with the projects that we're working with. Tess, would you like to share your thoughts, please?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here, all y'all. I want to also mention that there are kind of 4 pillars within this that the projects fall within that have come about from both the artists and the collaborators. And that's climate and biodiversity, indigeneity, shared humanity, and health and recovery. And for me, coming into the city of Boston and working on this project, I'm so humbled and excited to be able to provide a platform not only for those incredible organizations, but for community members and artists that haven't necessarily had the same kind of platform or support before, and to be able to work in collaboration in that actual exchange, to make a noticeable impact not only on the artists' lives and the works that they're making, but on the communities that which they're working with.
Thank you, Tess. And I would just like to add, give you a quick example, which would be Patrick Martinez. He's LA based, and Patrick is famous for his neons, often taking quotes of famous individuals like Martin Luther King, or creating his own phrases that deal with hybridity, like Korean soul food and things like that deal with the mix of cultures that are happening in LA and in Boston and other parts of the world. And so I asked Patrick we asked Patrick if he would be interested in developing neons based on conversations surrounding a particular issue. When he said yes, we said, well, what about homeless youth? And he said, yeah, I love that idea. And we mentioned this to the Triennial, and Marguerite, who's our wonderful person that deals with community engagement and programs, reached out, found this organization, Break Time, who we began to work with. And Marguerite and I attended with Patrick a 2-day session where we dove deep with homeless youth, where these individuals, most of which who have jobs, were struggling to find a place to live, and had gone to Break Time to for support. And this is really important, because from these conversations, from they're sharing their experience, Patrick has developed a series of about a dozen neons that are very, very powerful, that deal with this issue, which will be placed in a building in downtown Crossing, so that when people walk by, they will see the words of these young people who are struggling with homelessness and housing insecurity, and they are, I have to say, they're thrilled. They're thrilled. This has been a very productive and, again, extremely gratifying project. We go to the next slide, please. And then the curatorial process. Well, it's always good to find a great partner. And Tess and I met when she was with we met at her current job at the trustees, and we had really great conversations. And at one point, it became clear that she would be a great person to work with as a co-curator. And we began to develop the idea of the exchange. And a lot of the work took place in my living room, in my dining room, actually, with Post-its and artist names. and issues and sites and locations, and we began this long process of discussion and then exploration. And I'll stop there and let you, Tess, please share your thoughts on the process.
Thanks, Pedro. I also want to share that, when I first met Pedro working for the trustees, it was really fantastic. We were talking about another project for them. And I swear my boss could not get a word in edgewise between the two of us. We were idea after idea, back and forth, enjoying the rapport, building ideas, and collaborating in ways we could probably not have predicted until now. And I'm so excited to be able to collaborate with Pedro on this, especially as an Indigenous person here in Massachusetts. For those that don't know, I am a Quinawampanoag from out on Martha's Vineyard. And so I'm getting to work in my homelands in a way that I've never gotten to before. So to be able to, again, uplift artists, not only just local artists, but local Indigenous artists and also community members and our Indigenous artists from across the nation is a really exciting prospect for me. And to be able to then work with such an incredible institution and then also incredible curator, this process has been unlike any other. And it's actually really refreshing and a fantastic thing to be a part of. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Tess. I feel the same way. Can we see the next slide, please? Yeah, so we have a total of 18 artists. 15 were curated in the sense that they emerged from a rigorous dialogue, as Kate pointed out, and talking to artists, looking at work, studio visits, discussions. So obviously, curating is, you start with a big list and you start to narrow it down. Sometimes you narrow it down based on availability. Sometimes it's temperament. There's all sorts of things that go into it. But I think one of the most important things is that we wanted artists that could respond to this idea of the exchange and were willing to work with community, because it's so important to highlight to us that this premise that it highlight the great work that's being done in Boston. And that was fundamental in the selection process. And then there are the 3 accelerator artists who, Kate, I'm sorry, Tess, why don't you talk about accelerator?
Of course, I also want to include that a lot of this work that curatorially, in terms of the decisions about the artists and community members and who we're working with, was also informed by feedback from our curatorial group, our advisory group. It was an incredible group of people, is an incredible group of people that has been a sounding board for ideas and artists and their practices that have played a big role in the decision making for these artists. Now, I'm so excited to also highlight the work of fellow curator, my fellow curator Jasper Sanchez, who worked on the cohort that I'm going to talk about just briefly. Andy Lee, Allison Crony-Moses, and Evelyn Ritz, who are going to be working as our accelerator artists. These are 3 incredible artists, local artists in particular, that are working in ways that are really pushing the boundaries of what I've seen in Boston before. Evelyn in particular looking at the connection with water, Allison looking at the connection with motherhood and woodworking, and then Andy with his really honestly uplifting works that are flags and that display certain sayings that for me bring this kind of renewed interest and renewed sense of hope that has been a really refreshing part of their inclusion in the triennial.
Thank you, Tess. Next slide, please. And this, this slide just really drives home the point that it is about conversation, collaboration, and artists working with community to develop compelling works of art and compelling narratives. Next slide, please. This is the triennial refers to this as the hub and spoke model. the hub being the center of Boston, and then the spokes being these sites all around. So as you can see, the potential sites are really spread out all over the city and the city of Boston. And it's been great for me, quite honestly. Tess and I have been driving around a lot. We've been spending a lot of time with Leo and Kate and the whole team, Marguerite, out in these neighborhoods, exploring, looking at sites, and then bringing artists for site visits in order to develop the projects. And the thing about sites is that it's kind of a chicken or the egg situation. Sometimes the artist has a project and you're finding a site for that project, or sometimes you have a site that is really special that you bring to the artist. And this is what the footprint is looking like now. So it is truly all over Boston. Next slide, please. Oh, here we are. And I have to say too, about the community feedback and the listening sessions, we've spent a lot of time with our community captains, speaking with them, presenting ideas, and also listening. I mean, a lot of this work has been listening to what they have to say, recommendations, suggestions, warnings. Tess, any thoughts?
I have to say that the community listening sessions have been something that I didn't know I needed in my life. Because it was a moment of clarity working with those people and hearing their feedback. Marguerite has done an incredible job of supporting the community in Boston and being a true sounding board. And to get that feedback from those listening sessions about what artists and what artworks are meaningful to those communities has been instrumental in our curatorial process.
Thank you, Tess. That's very well said. Next slide, please. I think we have someone else talking about this at this point. Marguerite, is this yours?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Pedro and Tess and Kate who came before me. As Tess and Pedro said, we've been working really closely with our community advisory group of 11 paid community captains that represent the different neighborhoods. When we were at the map before, I just want to say the importance of moving people around the city, especially in being into the neighborhoods. So this project is not exclusive in just being in the downtown, but also reaching the large demographics that we have here in our great city. Part of that is also activating the city and really moving people around, especially with our partners. An exhibition citywide like this is only as strong as our strong partnerships as well. We're planning to activate Boston with over 100 programs over the 6 months. Those include neighborhood weekends, where we'll be dedicated to Fridays, Saturdays, and some Sundays of being in each of the neighborhoods where we'll have triennial projects and sites. And that's not just activating our sites, but it's pointing audiences and attendees to go visit our partner locations, go see small businesses, go see other public art that's on that great map that MOAC just created as well while you're in these neighborhoods. Also, we'll have youth and family programming with dedicated family days at each site throughout the exhibition. That includes visual storytelling, and also guided tours and some young people's guides for family activities that really expand upon the exchange. Also, a Let's Talk series. Throughout all of our programming, we're thinking about different ways that we can have our audience engage, whether they're familiar with public art or not. So our talk series will also be available to meet with artists and talk to community members. They might be lectures, they might be round tables, they might be really close conversations. Our public ambassadors are also integral to our project. They are paid docents that are on site to help with wayfinding, talk about programming, logistics, and also when an attendee comes or a visitor comes and they don't know much about the neighborhood as well as the art, that public art ambassador is also there to help them. And then again, our community advisory group. And I just want to list some of the partners that we're talking to. We currently have an open call out for partners through the end of this year into next year for them to propose programs that align really closely with the exchange. And our partners are not just art organizations, they're also civic organizations as well. And our museums, we are also, as Kate mentioned, working with all the major museums who also have public art on view during the triennial. Next slide. I'll hand it back to Tess and Pedro.
Hi. So the artist spotlight, Ekene Ijeoma. He's a Brooklyn-based artist with strong ties to Boston. He was here for a long time at the Media Lab. He's someone who he did a really wonderful project called Black Forest, which is a memorial to Black lives lost during the COVID-19 epidemic. And he is always looking at data, understanding systemic forms of injustice, of racism, and the impacts of redlining on tree coverage and in communities of color. So all of this is informing his practice. And he realized that African-American communities were disproportionately affected by COVID-19. And as a way to create a living memorial, he worked with communities. He worked with an organization called for the Trees, who we're working with. He worked with communities to plant a tree in honor of someone who passed away from COVID-19. And this is an opportunity to create a dialogue, to create a memorial as well, and for people to gather together and reflect on the lives lost. I was very impressed with this project, and when we asked him to be part of the triennial, he said, I want to expand upon Black Forest, and he wants to create a sculptural element that would be a place for gathering and contemplation in relation to the trees. So I'll leave it at that. Next slide, please. Here's a little information about Black Forest. So here are details that they are community-led tree plantings, as I said earlier. There is a ceremonial aspect. There is a collection of information. There will be a map, sound and video artworks. So it's a very complete project. Next slide, please. And the idea is to have this long-term artwork placed as a gift to the city in the Loesch Family Park. And there would be this sculptural element surrounding a tree that would be planted. So next slide, please.
All right, I can jump in to help close this out. Loesch Family Park is a place where Ekene has worked before. There is one tree that's maturing right there now, which would be where we would consider putting this long-term sculptural seating element that goes around the trees. I hope that gives you guys a sense, just a touch, a taste of what's to come, the amount of thought that our curators and the curatorial team have put into it, and the community feedback. I think I'll just give you one example of the community captains who've been very active in critiquing and supporting these projects. As there was a site that we were looking at, and they said, you know what, that's a site that already has a lot of art and already has a strong community, and that's not a site for a triennial project. And we said, absolutely, that's, we need to hear that kind of feedback. So, it come May 2022, after we've gone through more process with the Art Commission, we really do hope that we're sparking, collaboration, innovation. We're supporting the local economy. We're showing what Boston is and can be, and really, doing this in partnership with you guys. So I think we can open it up for feedback. I want to bring on Leo, Marguerite. There's so many of us that can answer questions that I know Pedro and Tess were maybe not ready for.
Thanks so much, Kate, and everyone, for talking about sort of the curatorial project, the Boston Triennial and about Ekene's work. Commissioners, the reason that we're here today listening to this presentation is because Ekene's project will be a long-term artwork, as you heard. As Kate had mentioned, most works in the Triennial are temporary, and of course we'll see those that will be placed on City of Boston property in upcoming sessions, upcoming BAC meetings. But Ekene's artwork will live on long past the end of this particular iteration of the Triennial. So I felt it was important that we go through the process of voting on the artist selection, then we will get the preliminary design and then final design for this presentation. So I would like to open it up to commissioner questions about the selection of Ekene's work. You can ask some questions about how it will be implemented, but I think we'll also have one more meeting about that at least to vote on as well. My question to you all from either Tess, Pedro, Kate, anyone on the Triennial team is, I recognize that Ekene's project sort of lent itself to this longer term investment in a tree planting and a sculpture site in Loge Park that would last beyond the exhibition schedule. And I'm curious if you had conversations with other artists, how Ekene was selected, just so we can understand a bit more about that selection process.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak a little bit about, oh, Pedro's back.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead, Leo. I don't
I
want
was
to cut you
going
off.
to say that in talking with the artist, Ekene's project, he always centered the idea that the trees should be growing and they should be this living memorial that is meant to improve Boston for generations to come. The places that we're looking at for plantings are places that have a paucity of green spaces and trees, and it's communities that have asked for these trees. And so that was always the intention. And then in thinking through, you know, the life of a tree and how they can be so important to a community and provide these shade and spaces to gather and congregate, the sculptural seating element became a way to build upon that and to really offer communities a place to reflect. So in my mind, it was the project that was best suited for a long-term project, and it seemed like it was inherently baked into the idea in a way that the other projects didn't necessarily have as an organic feature of their statement. So
Yeah, thank you, Leo. And you know, if you think about it, I mean, planting trees is already a semi-permanent, well, not permanent, but a long-term gesture on behalf of the artist. So this was a natural fit. And when he wanted to expand on it and have it stay longer, this made perfect sense to us. And it is also important to, honor the artist's wishes and intentions as much as we can when we develop these projects.
Commissioners, does anyone else have a question or comment?
I'd just like to say thank you to the Boston Public Art Triennial and the entire team for doing such a stupendous and amazing job.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I do have one last question before I turn it over to members of the public. Have you had conversations with the Parks Department about this? And if so, could you elaborate a little bit?
Yes, we have had conversations with the Parks Department. Before we got to the Parks Department, to us, it was really important to make sure that what we were doing was going to be well received by the community that uses this park. And so we went down and we had meetings with Cynthia Loesch. We went down on a day when she was speaking with Bold Teens, and it happened to be really fortuitous. We went with our partner Speak for the Trees, who we're relying on to really make sure that this sculptural element is something that is not going to infringe on the health and well-being of the trees. So obviously that would run counter to the entire project. So we went down and Cynthia was talking to Bold Teens about how human interactions and pet interactions affect the trees that are planted in that park. And she was engaging them in a project where they were helping to design signage about please don't climb the trees, doing so harms them. Please make sure that your pets aren't using them as bathrooms, because that is a real threat to these young trees as they grow. And when we went down, we had Speak for the Trees guiding us on what would be a great tree for this bench. And so you want to look at things like what stage of the maturation process is the tree in, because people are going to naturally want to recline on it. You also want to make sure that the tree has room to grow in order throughout its lifespan, and it's not going to be held in or constrained in any way by the bench. So we selected this tree. It really worked well. It's near a tree that was planted as a memorial. And so Cynthia thought that it would be a great place for people to gather and be able to interact with those two elements. And only after that did we go and speak to Paul McCaffrey in Parks about this project. We have not received final firm approval yet, but he is interested in this project. He thinks that it's a great site, and we're going to continue our conversations there. There's also more in-depth conversations to have that Speak for the Trees will be leading, and that will be around with Parks around the planting of the trees. We have lots of experience in placing and citing artwork and know how to speak towards that and to guarantee permissions with Parks. But we haven't done tree plantings, or I personally haven't done the permitting for that. And so Speak for the Trees and I will be having conversations with those in the Parks Department that they've worked with. So this will be really interesting. It'll be an opportunity for the art and the tree planting systems to kind of come together on this one project.
Thanks so much, Leo. I'll now open it up to members of the public. And Allison, thanks for your question. And Leo, thank you for placing the map that locates Loesch Park within the context of the city map. But if any other members of the public have a question or comment, please ask them now.
I wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
Is it a Miyawaki forest, out of curiosity?
I don't know that reference, Nellie Kate.
There's this really rad set of forests that are popping up in Cambridge and Somerville that are based on a Japanese model for planting forests in a small urban environment. And it's a really interesting permacultural thing that I just realized. I thought, wow, I bet Ekene is really into that. Anyway.
I bet
I just
he
wondered.
is. We'll check, because that'd be really cool to make that connection.
Yeah, I'd love to chat offline, Nellie, and find out more about that project.
He probably is, Nellie. Any other questions? Well, I now turn it to members of the commission. Just to remind you, we are voting on artist selection for this process. So if any commissioner would like to make a motion to approve the artist selection of Ekene Ijeoma for the Loesch Park for the Triennial, this long-term installation, if you could make a motion, please do so.
So moved. I think that was the motion, John.
Wait, can you repeat it, Brian?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the artist of Ekene Ijeoma for this long-term work process.
Thanks, Brian. Do I have a second?
The triennial.
I second that motion.
Thanks so much, Abigail. Commissioners, after I say your name, please say yes if you agree with the motion. James?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Nigel?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes. Thank you all so much, Boston Triennial members, for coming and presenting this to us. We look forward to hearing about all of the projects that'll be on City of Boston property coming up soon, but really excited to hear about this project and many more to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you, commissioners. We'll see you soon.
Thank you all. I look forward to returning to present some individual projects at a later date.
We'll get your name right, Leo, next time. Sorry about that.
My ancestors would probably be proud. I think that's probably the original spelling, so.
Our next presentation for review today is X Legacy, a long-term asphalt mural in the final design phase by artists Otra Ciudad and Nomada Estudio Urbano for the Malcolm X Park basketball court in Roxbury, proposed by Liza Quinones, City of Boston, and Liza will introduce the project.
Hi, sorry, it's actually going to be me who's accessioning today. My mistake.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Paul.
So just as John mentioned, this is the kind of final accessioning of our 4-part commission for the Malcolm X Park and Shelburne Community Center, which was in Roxbury on the Malcolm X Park. So this is the newest asphalt mural here that was done by Otra Ciudad and Nomada Estudio Urbano. And here we have their maintenance plan that just kind of updates all of the materials that they have used, different ways to prep, as well as the visual inspection and cleaning and coating reapplication and the professional assessment. Commissioners, in your folder, there is also some additional material stipulations that the artists have listed out as part of our maintenance, as part of the more formal maintenance plan, but this is just kind of an overview of it. Yeah, so this would be for Malcolm X Park Court number 3. Yeah, it's been very special to see the courts activated, and we're already hearing a lot of really, really wonderful news about people using them and enjoying them too.
Great. Thanks so much, Paul. That was brief. Commissioners, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask of Paul or comments, feel free. I'm just excited to see these projects all come together and finally be completed and moving towards accessioning them into the collection. So thank you for everyone for all the work.
I was gonna say similarly, I think these are just such cool projects with like a really high level of cool factor. So congrats to the whole team.
Any other commissioners? Any members of the public who'd like to ask a question or make a comment? Okay, hearing none. I'm curious if a commissioner would like to move acceptance of this artwork into the City of Boston collection.
I would like to move that the commission accept the long-term asphalt mural at Malcolm X Park into the city's collection.
Thanks, Abigail. So moved. Do I have a second?
I'll give that.
Was that you, Brian?
Yes.
Great.
Happy birthday, Mozzie. M-A-Z.
Thanks, Nigel. Commissioners, after I say your name, please say yes if you agree with the motion. James?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Nigel?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes. This is so great. Really happy to have this joining our collection. And now, the next court mural. So I'll pass again to Alexandra Paul Zotov, Public Art Register, to discuss Give Them Their Flowers.
So this is the final mural that's going to be in this 4-part project, as I mentioned in the Shelburne. I just want to give a huge, huge thank you to Liza Quinones, who's been doing all the project management for this, and as well as all of our incredible partners for this, which has been both parks and the BCYF. It's really been special to see over the last year it being activated in different ways, beginning with the Shelburne mural to now. So it's been my first time to kind of see a project come from fruition, from commission, from the original design and going through the motions. So it's really a pleasure to share with you all the final images of Give Them Their Flowers. which is a very, very special court. And as I mentioned earlier, there is the maintenance plan that is a little bit more rigorous that's included in your commissioning folder. And here are just some kind of more straightforward maintenance plans that includes our visual inspection, the cleaning, coding reapplication, the professional assessment, as well as the references, reference notes, which include the dimensions and the prep and the paint. This is the largest of the three courts. So it had just a little bit more spatial considerations.
Thanks so much, Paul. Again, this will be a similar process. Commissioners, any questions or comments? I will share that the photo you had, Paul, of sort of the human level of the court, it does look pretty great.
Yeah, so this is the upper court. This is where a lot of people go to hang out. And the two other ones are a little bit smaller and kind of are like a stack that leads you down to the Shelbourne mural where you can see the work by Gio Ortega.
Comments or questions? Any members of the public who have a question or a comment? Well, if any commissioner would like to make a motion to accept, give them their flowers into the Boston Public Art Collection, please make it if you would.
I'll make that motion to accept, give them their flowers into the Malcolm X Park.
You could, if you could just say acceptance.
Accept. Tense.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks, James. Do I have a second?
I'm happy to second that motion.
Abigail, thank you so much. Commissioners, after I say your name, please say yes if you agree with the motion. James?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Nigel?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. The motion passes. Special thanks to Liza for all of her work in organizing this and the rest of the staff for helping to make these projects happen. I think they look great, and I think they're a unique and interesting addition to our public art collection here in the city of Boston. So thank you. The last order of business tonight is adjournment. I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
That would be me.
Thanks, James. As always. After I say your name, Commissioner, please say yes if you agree to adjourn. James?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Nigel?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Commissioners, thank you all for being here tonight. I know we're a little tight on attendees, and it's always important we get a quorum, but I really appreciate your time and spending it with us in these evenings, looking at these amazing artworks and projects that we have. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hang in there, and I'll see you again next month.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night,
Thanks
y'all.
all.